Good afternoon. I see there's a little lag here in my video. This is the Ancient Texan, and I'm going to be talking about the trailing side of abundance. If you imagine a bell shaped curve, and if you're tracking abundance and all that that means, um, we are on the downside of that bell shaped curve. I looked at 10 megatrends, 10 big problems that we have. Turns out all our megatrends are mostly in the problem category, and I tried to arrange them and how they're going to impact our lives over you know, the future and putting more emphasis on the short run, like the next 5 years, and some have impacts further out. So if you said which ones were going to impact you in 10 years or 20 years, you'd get a different priority on this list. But I'm taking, the 5 to 10 year category, which ones are going to hurt us the most. Number one on the list is the national debt and financial collapse. I think this is going to be a slow moving disaster, especially for the poor. The new federal chairman, the Federal Reserve chairman, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment, essentially just going to let our money deteriorate in values, and people that don't have assets like stocks and bonds and uh, real estate won't have anything that's pulling them up. Everything will be pulling them down. The rich will get richer and the poor will get poorer. So we're going to go through each of these things, and sometimes we're going to, comment on the good and bad and how it interacts. Um, National debt's all bad. How we're dealing with it's all bad. The biggest moral issue involved here is that we're not treating the debt like it's a moral responsibility to repay it. That loses confidence and means we have to pay a higher interest rate, and it's going to pull us down faster. If we made some feeble attempt to raise taxes and lower expenditures, like stop having so many wars, and support our allies and multiply our power by supporting Ukraine, um, we could slow down the impact, and it's probably not too late to reverse it. But we show no inclination to take responsibility for our debt. We lack the moral fiber to do this. Declining resources. That's the second on my list. Commodities, food, water, habitat. They're all going south, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. We will transition away from the things where we can. But you take something like copper, and it's really hard to transition away from copper. Silver conducts electricity about as good as better than copper. But can you imagine having how long a silver cable would last up in the air with hungry people around? Plus the fact that there's just not the quantity of silver available even if we wanted to. Aluminum also conducts electricity pretty good. However, the it forms an oxide film, and the contact between connectors is much more difficult. And if not done right, it causes fires. Plus, it's not, it's like 70-80% as good as copper, which makes a lot of difference, when you're paying uh, those extra resistance charges and extra power cost to push it through something that's not as good. So, a lot of resources that we have um, are declining. That's just the reality. Oil, the biggest, we're at the peak or on the right side of the peak. The U.S. is probably on the right side of the peak. We've been sucking on that straw really hard, and our our straw is gonna hit the bottom of the glass faster because we're sucking on the straw harder than anybody else. Is that smart? I don't think so, but we don't really care if that's smart. We care about making profit today, profit now. That's our way, that's our system. Water becoming a big shortage. Colorado River Basin, Corpus Christi has the Brazos River. They may be the first city of any size to not have water at all. Texas Panhandle has deleted the aquifer. So has the Middle East. You know, sucked their aquifer out. Saudi Arabia, a lot of countries have sucked their water low. And the Middle East has the luxury right now of having enough oil that they can just burn oil and natural gas and run the pumps and do uh, desalination. But that's expensive, and it's not gonna go on forever. And uh, the next one I call third world cancer. We're having wealth inequality eat us up from the bottom. We have extreme wealth inequality. We're not doing anything to address that. We're just kidding ourselves. The best thing that we could probably do is support our children and the weak. But we apparently don't care about the poor. Bottom third of our people now live much poorer lives than Costa Rica, Panama, Mexico. Their standard of living is better and improving faster than it is for the bottom third. Our people at the top are doing great. People at the bottom, we just care. We just tell them eat cake, just like the French did, just like the French Revolution. Yeah, but that couldn't happen here, could it? We're too good for that, aren't we? Number four, and I'd probably put this at the top. I had AI and me were having a big discussion over this, but I would say the decline of useful energy. Uh, there's always going to be some oil in the ground, stuff we can't get to without a lot of money. There's always going to be sun, and you know, as long as we have high grade silica and lots of lithium to make batteries and copper to transmit it, there'll always be energy. But the energy will be harder to get to, and it will be harder to use because we won't have the tools that you need to manage energy. Electricity costs are going to rise, and AI, which is later on this list, is going to be making that worse. Number five on my list: supply chain deterioration and fragmentation. The world order is breaking apart. Um, We had a system in place that was very efficient and gave us a lot of low cost stuff. But we've jumped into the tariff war. We've made China the bad guys, and they've probably made us the bad guys. And instead of doubling down and trying to become friends and working together, both sides are not worrying about the other side, and they're just worrying about themselves. So the supply chains, which mostly goes through China these days, U.S. sucks at this. This is, for America, I would put this right up at the very top. Our supply chains suck. They all depend on somebody else. The base level, where everything comes from out of the ground, the mines, the fields, the crops, the woodlands, um, we're generally sucking hind tit. And another problem that's looming, and now this one's a little more um, avoidable, although I don't see any reason why we are going to avoid it. A second resource war. The whole world used to run on wars where mostly the countries in Europe, but Middle East and China and stuff were not immune from these wars, but we fought over resources. Iran is the first resource war in the modern era. It's resource we're fighting about right there. Who controls the resource of oil coming through the Strait of Hormuz? If I don't say that right, it's a resource war. Without the resource there and the need for it, and you're kidding yourself if you think we're ever going back to the way it was before Iran. It is never going to be the same. Oil is never going back to gasoline is never going back to $3. It's not going to settle down. It's not going to be okay. That war is showing how tight the world supply is and how totally dependent we are on the whole system working. A system that's breaking apart. And that's going to be the first resource war. We're going to have resource wars of smaller types, like who gets the water from the Colorado River? Who pays for the desalination plant to keep Corpus Christi going? These resources are not infinite, and the bill's coming due. Number 7, the death of democracy and the buffoon's chaos. I don't think a lot of people actually believe in democracy anymore. They believe in their tribe being in charge. They do not believe in working together and doing what's right. The whole, rig the elections where Democrats or Republicans, that's people that do not believe in democracy. And we're kind of in the transition between a democracy and I don't know, a feudal oligarch system. Our our rich people in charge. I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the rich elite run this country. And you can pretend we have a democracy, but I don't think that's quite true anymore. There's going to be a cost. The rich people being in charge are going to do what the French did, and we're not any better than they were. And I don't see any way that we're getting out of that loop. Not enough people that care to stand up for democracy. A lot of people willing to stand up for their tribe, but that is not the same thing. Number 8 on my list, AI and the rule of the techno kings. AI, from my viewpoint, is going to help the rich people that own it, the Googles and Microsoft and Anthropic and OpenAI, although I don't think OpenAI will make it. Um, they just don't have the cash flow to support their nonsense. And they're not building customers, they're losing market share. And they're not principled. Uh, Anthropic, at least, is going through the motions of being principled and caring about, you know, AI safety. I don't know if they really do or not. We're just mortals here that get the garbage they send to us. The techno kings rule, and unless Citizens United is overturned, and Hawaii right now has just passed a law that it's unlawful for a company that's formed in Hawaii to spend money on elections. Now, this is a new angle. Like when you make a company, like most people, Delaware makes a lot of companies because they're very pro business. Um, they define the powers, the authority, the charters, that what's legal and not legal for a corporation. So if the power is not originally given to the corporation, and if it's specifically denied um, by the state that forms the corporation, can they take a power that's not given to them? According to the way that we've always interpreted the law in the past, the answer is no. Hawaii's passing it, and something like 14 other states have got laws that says they're not giving the power to contribute money to elections. They're specifically denying them their power in the creation. Now, this means every state's got to do it, but that's actually a little hopeful there. That's something that goes a little against number 7, the death of democracy. Could give us a fighting chance. The pushback against AI power centers gives us a little hope. Number 9, declining fertility, shrinking populations, and aging populations. On the short haul, like a generation out, like the next 30 years, this is going to be really hard on us. I don't think most people realize how bad this is going to be. But you're going to end up with a bunch of old people and a small working group that's supposed to support themselves, the old people, and the few kids they manage to have. It's a spiral downward. And if you want to see what it looks like, look at, places like Italy and Europe and South Korea. They give away houses for $1, come live in them, trying to keep a city from disappearing. China, this is happening to them. And it says we don't care about having children and creating new life, which to me is discouraging as hell. Like the most valuable thing in my world right now is my grandson. There is nothing as important to me as him. And I would do and I am doing a lot within my power to try to support him and his mom because I really believe in children and families. I also understand that it's hard for poor people to raise kids. And places like South Korea are pouring a lot of money into trying to make people have children, and so is China. Doesn't work after you get so far down. It just becomes the thing to be independent and not have kids, and that becomes the way it is, and that becomes everybody's new reality: no kids. Of course, that new reality has a expiration date. So, in the short run, I would say this is going to be horrible. Now, I'm optimistic that some countries are going to figure out how to reverse this. Maybe not. If we don't, then maybe we just turn the whole planet back over to the animals, which probably is not the worst thing that could happen. So, declining populations, uh, out there at a generation or two, have the impact on climate change. That's just exactly what the doctor ordered. Uh, Disappearing habitat and disappearing animals is going to be a big help. Of course, it's all going to be a big help, and we're not going to be here to appreciate it. So that's kind of very bittersweet at the best, at the most. So anyway, that's number 9 on my list. Number 10 on my list is closely related: environmental degradation. Climate change just generally screwing up the planet. I think humans, two things. One, people, everybody that's not prosperous wants to be prosperous. If you live in Africa or South America, you want to increase your standard of living, you want to consume more energy, and it's going to degrade the climate. That's just the way it is. It's not, you consume energy, you make CO2, even if you just do solar panels and, have mines and dig up copper and uh, run the furnaces to make the solar panels and dig up the copper to transmit it. It's still, maybe the rate isn't quite as fast, but it's still, if you multiply that by a lot of people becoming more prosperous, the climate still loses. But number 9, declining fertility, is countering that. Uh, China population is probably much lower than the official number. Their 1.4 is complete nonsense. They're definitely under a billion people, and maybe the lowest numbers is 600 million, 800 million. But they're nose diving fast. That's going to be a big help to the climate. They're also like manufacturing center. They're kind of got the opposite disease of America. They dig up the whole world and make everything into products, whether people can buy it. They work their people 12 hours a day. They don't pay their people, but they manufacture and make a lot of stuff. They have electric cars parked in football fields of thousands, tens of thousands of cars they've made that nobody's bought. Bicycles, the same way, electric bikes. Lots of stuff they just produce. That's pretty harmful to the environment. But as their population declines, maybe there'll be a less environmental degradation. In the U.S., on the other extreme, just on a per capita basis, just consumes the hell out of electricity. And the South Americas and Africas are all trying to grow into prosperity and consume more energy. So Climate change, um, I think the forces that are changing the climate are too big and too powerful, um, too diverse. Our current plan requires the people that are poor to stay poor to meet the climate change. Well, that's not going to happen. I think they do not have a plan. Their plan also needs, five times as much copper to be mined as being mined in the past. That's not going to happen. There's a whole lot of things about the plan of climate change that's just not going to happen. I think they're just going to have to sit tight and wait until declining fertility solves that problem. The great extinction is actually really a subcategory of environmental degradation. We're destroying the habitats of other animals, and a lot of other animals are dying and disappearing. And it's really, really sad, or we think we're so special. Do you know that elephants have a name for every other elephant, and they remember the names? They can be 20 years apart. New studies with listening to their vocal range goes much below what humans can hear. But new science shows that they have a name for each other. Every elephant has a name that all the other elephants know and remember. Porpoises and dolphins and whales and stuff that's coming in that they have names. Pigeons can look at a screen and look for cancers and breasts, in breasts that have tumors and tell which one are malignant. And if you get a group of them together, they're actually better than a radiologist. Yeah, we think we're so smart. We're idiots. In the bigger scheme of things, by not seeing how we're part of the animal kingdom and no more important, um, we're the ones that are idiots. So 11 is the great extinction, degradation of the world. Now, these 11, you can range them in different orders and you can argue about their impact, but it's not good. We're on the trailing side of abundance. Now, we can ease into this world like the great simplification and Nate Higgins or whatever. He's trying to preach the sermon. I don't know how well he walks the walk. But we can transition into this, gracefully and learn how to put, love in each other as our important values instead of having more stuff. But we can, but whether we will or not, I don't know. Stick around. You got people that have the luxury of being here another, 30, 40 years, you'll start seeing what's happening. I think we're going to have some tough decades ahead of us. Now, these are the problems, and if we want to, sit down and focus and have serious conversations, like go back to having a democracy where we look at the trade offs that are on the table, we can make this a lot less painful. And maybe we can transition to a world where love and caring for each other grow, and you know, and it counteracts having less stuff. But maybe not. Maybe we'll keep having our short term profit mentality where that's all that matters, and the rich get richer and they get happier with, putting all the investment into AI and not caring about the wealth inequality and making us a bunch of garbage promises about AI. I think that's, AI. Tell me how AI optimizes a supply chain we don't have. Just look at this list. Does AI help with the national debt? Nope. Does it help with financial collapse? Nope. Does it help much with declining resources? Not much, really. Wealth inequality? Nope. It's going to make it worse. Decline of useful energy? Maybe we can make a little improvement in a solar panel or something. But the bigger scheme of things, can it help the fact that we're sucking on the straw and the jar holding all that oil is getting empty? Not much. That's been optimized by models and computers for decades. Can they make a slight incremental improvement? I don't think enough that anybody's going to notice. Can AI optimize supply chains that we don't have? And the fragmentation that's occurring because the world order is breaking down? Nah. Can it stop resource wars? I don't see how. Can it stop the death of democracies? No, I think it makes it worse. I think it helps keep the buffoon in power. The rich elites are supporting Trump. Elon got Trump elected. AI and the rule of the techno kings. I wouldn't say AI is the worst problem on this list, but I think you could argue that the rule of the techno kings and the rich elite, um, maybe that should be pushed higher to the top. Declining fertility rates, shrinking populations. I don't see how AI helps with that. Environmental degradation, the great extinction, climate change. There could be some technical advances on these things from AI, but it's not technology that's the problem. It's our will and our moral values that say, screw the poor. The rich deserve it, the poor don't. It's that attitude. We don't say it, but we sure as hell act it out. So I think all of these lists here, if we want to make an impact on them, it's not going to be technology driven. Is we're going to have a renaissance of values and of caring for each other. And for the life of me, I don't see where that's coming from. This is the ancient Texan feeling sorry for humanity, feeling sorry for my grandson and the world that he's going into. Being sorry that I don't have more grandchildren and our nation doesn't have more children. Sorry that we don't take care of our kids, don't take care of our old, we don't take care of the weak. We are out for profit and material goods. I would love to see our values change and us to put love and care and kindness and a long term viewpoint on solving problems instead of just letting profits dictate every decision we do. This is the Ancient Texan. I hope you have a good one. Namaste.